whenever Srila Prabhupada was asked later about his success, Prabhupada would always say that I don't have much qualifications. Prabhupada said I had no qualifications. He was not a very great scholar. But he said all I had was faith in the holy name of the Lord and faith in my spiritual master's desire. So many times we have seen people being driven by the fuel of greed, or which comes in the which take the form of ambition, greed, or lust, the hankering for money, name, fame, so on. But here we see in the Acharya's lives, in the great devotees of the Lord, they're not driven by any such material factors. They're driven by the desire of the Lord, the desire of the desire of the previous Acharyas, the desire of the Lord. So just to recap about the journey of the life of Srila Prabhupada, we saw how Srila Prabhupada's life began with the perpetual prayer of his father, whom Srila Prabhupada says himself was a pure devotee of the Lord. Although he was a cloth merchant, his main business was serving Krishna. And Prabhupada got up hearing in his early childhood. He used to get up hearing the ringing bells of his father worshipping the Radha and Krishna. And therefore, when Prabhupada was in perambulator, he would go to the Radha Govind temple, which was just opposite side of the road. In his pram, he was taken by the assistant, and Prabhupada would take darshan of the deities for hours and hours and hours. And therefore, when Srila Prabhupada wanted to play instead of toys, he asked for the deities of Radha and Krishna, and he and his younger sister used to worship. So that was his father's desire, who would call dozens of saints every day and feed them, and he had only one prayer to ask them: at least bless my child, that he becomes a devotee of Radharani. So we saw that in the form of Srila Prabhupada, his father Gaur Mohan De's desires were completely fulfilled. Prabhupada was like that blessing of the Lord, devoted. So Prabhupada's childhood Rath Yatra festival in his society, and Prabhupada had amassed all the children into the service and glorification of Lord Jagannath, and his parents are fully supporting him in this venture. Next, we saw in ABC that wherever Prabhupada went, he was a successful pharmaceutical industrialist. In Allahabad, with Prayag Pharmacy, Prabhupada's venture Prayag Pharmacy are flourishing. But along with the material success, Srila Prabhupada kept the intensity of spiritual life fully on. Prabhupada never compromised the intensity of spiritual life. And therefore, in Allahabad, because Prabhupada was quite influential because of his entrepreneurial Prayag Pharmacy, he would gather all the respectable people of Allahabad and take them to the temple center, Gaudiya Math Center, and introduce them to the devotees so that they can be preached. they can be introduced to Krishna. Then we discussed in times change in Srila Prabhupada's Prayag pharmacy met with a fire accident, and then his business collapsed. So Prabhupada went for a job for some time, and he went to Bombay. So as soon as he landed there, he saw the disciples, sannyasi disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who had come to open a center in Bombay, and Prabhupada did everything for them, from preaching to fundraising to selection of the land to construction to everything. And therefore, these two sannyasis wanted Srila Prabhupada to become the president of the Bombay Center. And when they now expressed their desire to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Maharaj made the point that when the right time comes, this man will do everything. And then later, Srila Prabhupada shifted back to Calcutta, and at this point of time, his preaching activities were quite picked up, and therefore Prabhupada in his profession, and Prabhupada was now in growing ages, like that in his profession. So he had the pharmacy outlet, which was running at a certain level, at a decent level. But then Prabhupada's whole time and energy was focused on preaching. And anybody would come and ask spiritual questions to Prabhupada, he was ready to give hours and hours to them. So that is how Srila Prabhupada kept a perfect dedication of spirituality all through his career, and duties. And then we were at the point that Prabhupada, so then we saw that when Srila Prabhupada thought of fully retiring from professional life to the cause, obviously he was 55 of his age at that time, for the cause of the mission of Lord Chaitanya. Prabhupada struggles in Delhi, and then finally Prabhupada gets an opportunity to go to America, in Jaladuta, the Sindhya steamship company's cargo ship, and there Prabhupada lands in Boston, and then being some time in Pennsylvania, Prabhupada goes to New York. So I believe till this aspect we saw in the video, in the documentary video about Srila Prabhupada's life, the biographical video about Srila Prabhupada's life and journey. We will see further today. Srila Prabhupada used to say that this movement will go down in the pages of history for having saved the world at its great time of need. So Srila Prabhupada's journey, United States, in the Jaladuta, with 40 rupees in his pocket, and trunks of Srimad Bhagavatam to distribute, and one copy of Chaitanya Charitamrita for himself to read and relish and meditate on the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, and the faith in the spiritual master and the holy name. That is what Srila Prabhupada carried with him to the United States. And in that stormy journey, having suffered 2 heart attacks in the ship itself, that was Srila Prabhupada. And in that way, Srila Prabhupada landed in Boston. Prabhupada right from the beginning explains that as soon as he saw Boston, as soon as he saw the Americans, Prabhupada would immediately see how dull, dark, and hellish is the lives of the people, is the life of the Americans. In big buildings and the razzle and dazzle, Prabhupada could see through it all. Prabhupada could penetrate through it all and see through it all that this is all empty husk and nothing else. This is not empty husk. All what Prabhupada had was that deep desire, the instruction of a spiritual master to preach in the Western world. His faith and his commitment and his dedication to the mission of his Gurudev, the mission of Lord Chaitanya. So 18 September 1965, Srila Prabhupada, he wrote a prayer at Boston Harbor. And Prabhupada is telling, my dear Lord Krishna, you are so kind upon this useless soul, but I do not know why you have brought me here. Now you can do whatever you like with me. But I guess, so the prayer is in Bengali. We can sing it as well. We can sing it as well with Mayank. But what I'm reading right now is just the translations. I guess you have the English translations. Some business here. Otherwise, why would you bring to this terrible place? Most of the population here is covered by the material modes of ignorance and passion. Absorbed in material life, they think themselves very happy and satisfied. And therefore, they have no taste for the transcendental message of Vasudeva. I do not know how will they be able to understand it. So Prabhupada is expressing, he doesn't know how people, these intoxicated people, and essentially absorbed and overwhelmed and intoxicated, how will they understand the message of Krishna? But then Prabhupada is telling, but I know your causeless mercy can make everything possible because you are the most expert mystic. How will they understand the mellows of devotional service, O Lord? I am simply praying for your mercy so that I will be able to convince them about your message. All living entities have come under the control of the illusory energy by your will. And therefore, if you like, by your will, they can also be released from the clutches of illusion. I wish that you may deliver them. Therefore, if you so desire their deliverance, then only will they be able to understand your message. How will I make them understand this message of Krishna consciousness? I am very unfortunate, unqualified, and the most fallen. Therefore, I am seeking your benediction so that I can convince them. For I am powerless to do so on my own. Somehow or the other, O Lord, you have brought me to speak about you. Now, my Lord, it is up to you to make me a success or failure, as you like. O spiritual master of all the world, I can simply repeat your message So if you like, you can make my power of speaking suitable for their understanding. Only by your causeless mercy will my words become pure. I am sure that when this transcendental message penetrates their hearts, they will certainly feel enlightened and thus become liberated from all the unhappy conditions of life. Oh Lord, I am just like a puppet in your hands. So if you have brought me here to dance, then make me dance, make me dance, make me dance. Oh Lord, make me dance as you like. I have no devotion, nor do I have any knowledge, but I have strong faith in the holy name of Krishna. I have been designated as Bhakti Vedanta. And now, if you like, you can fulfill the real purpose of Bhakti Vedanta. So times were not immediately favorable. As soon as Srila Prabhupada reached Boston, Prabhupada himself says when he reached Boston, he didn't know whether he has to take left or right. All he had got was a letter from one of his acquaintances that uh, that his son and daughter-in-law uh, will take care of proper lodging for, I believe, 3 months period. That was in Butler, Pennsylvania. And Butler, Pennsylvania was, Butler, Pennsylvania from Boston uh, was a whole lot of a drive actually. So Prabhupada, I believe Prabhupada reached in the evening hours, and then past midnight he reached Butler, Pennsylvania. So it was a good long drive actually to Butler, Pennsylvania. Prabhupada was all alone in his mission. Prabhupada was all alone. So Butler, Pennsylvania became actually a ground where Prabhupada was doing or Prabhupada was analyzing the mindsets, the lifestyle, the priorities, and the mannerisms of Americans. When Prabhupada was there in Butler, Pennsylvania, uh, he did a few programs in a few universities. So he did a program in a university, in some clubs. Prabhupada did some programs. So that's where it was. And the Agarwals actually, the Gopal Agarwal and Sally Agarwal, they had arranged a room for Prabhupada to stay, which was like a few minutes walk from their home. But for bathing, for cooking, Prabhupada had to come to their house. So that's how it was. And Prabhupada then would be staying in their house all day, and then meeting people there, sometimes conducting talks there, and then in the evening he would go back. That is how Prabhupada was. But soon Prabhupada went to New York, and now in New York. So Pennsylvania, Butler, Pennsylvania was Prabhupada's ground where he was trying to analyze, and he was trying to understand the mindset of the Americans. He was trying to study them deeply. And then Prabhupada went for action to on grounds New York, and actually Prabhupada. So Prabhupada, so New York, Prabhupada was on his own actually. So Prabhupada was really on his own. So initially he got to stay with Dr. Mishra, but Dr. Mishra was not giving. Dr. Mishra had a yoga studio, and he would teach yoga, but he was not allowing Prabhupada to give lectures. The Prabhupada could stay there, but soon Prabhupada shifted. So Prabhupada shared an accommodation And Prabhupada's roommate, was a young boy. His name was David. And David was seemingly picking up Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada was very excited. Prabhupada wrote to his god brothers that I have found one American. His name is David. I will make him Krishna conscious. I will teach him Krishna consciousness, and then he will go all over the world, other parts of the world, and then he will preach Krishna consciousness. But sometimes David would go high on dose of drugs. And one specific night, he was quite high on drugs, and then he came to the room, and actually he tried to he attacked Srila Prabhupada to kill him, and Prabhupada had to run for his life, and Prabhupada had few of his belongings, of which was one typewriter in which Prabhupada was typing commentaries on Bhagavatam, and Prabhupada had to leave all that, and here was Prabhupada in the dead of the night on the streets of America under the sun praying to Srila Prabhupada, praying. So that was the point. And then in the meantime, yes, as you had seen, Prabhupada chanting in the Thompson Square Park. There were some people who had become favorable, and Prabhupada started taking classes that time. So Prabhupada went to Mukunda Maharaj, Mike, that time, and requested him, can he arrange, explain to me what happened. Then Mukunda Maharaj actually helped Srila Prabhupada actually arrange an accommodation. That was at 26 Second Avenue, which became the first center, the Master's Gift Shop. That center is still there with us. It became the first center, the Master's Gift Shop. So one by one, the devotees trickled in, and in this rate, the movement had grown. One. And Prabhupada was doing everything from cooking to cleaning to preaching to counseling to helping out. Prabhupada was doing everything. And for the devotees, Prabhupada was everything for them. Prabhupada cared for them every way. Prabhupada would feed them. He was like he was father to them. He was their guide. He would and he taught them everything from A to Z. That was how it was. So that was how it was. He taught them everything A to Z. And Prabhupada didn't just give philosophy. Prabhupada gave them culture. Prabhupada gave them the Vaishnava principles, the lifestyle, how to center their lifestyle, how to enrich their day-to-day lives by adding Krishna to their lives. Yeah. So the first center which took place, the 26 Second Avenue, the first center, New York, and from there actually, the second center which kicked off was San Francisco. The devotees, there's a group of devotees in San Francisco, and they were very powerfully preaching in San Francisco. And then, so San Francisco was the second center. And this was the time in Srila Prabhupada had seen the San Francisco center is growing. And Prabhupada had given instructions. Prabhupada had given the design template to devotees at New York. And Prabhupada wanted a big temple. Prabhupada wanted a powerful temple, actually. And talks were going on about one property. And Prabhupada had told devotees to take the property. It was $1 million property that time. The movement had no money, like that. But Prabhupada's faith, Prabhupada's determination, Prabhupada never slowed down. Prabhupada never slowed down, actually. So Prabhupada was in Francisco, and San Francisco was picking up, and Prabhupada was taking programs all over universities. Prabhupada was speaking to various sections of people. It was so powerful. And in the meantime, in New York, then the devotees were trying for this land, but they got cheated of $6,000. So they got cheated from some mediators, in between third-party mediators and all. And had Prabhupada, they warned them, to be careful and not to release money like that, but they lost it. Anyhow, Prabhupada's determination was never dampened. So, yes, San Francisco was the second center which kicked off, actually. The third was Montreal. And after that, as you saw in the video, Shyam Sundar Prabhu explained, the fourth one was London, where where George Harrison, became a devotee. George Harrison became and after years, George Harrison's Krishna conscious albums and George Harrison's foundations in which devotees could release their albums, uh, uh, the Krishna consciousness spread, or the Krishna consciousness spread like fire all over the world. So Srila Prabhupada carried that, now we can just relate that when Prabhupada as a small child, he was taking a rath cart in all his, in the lanes of his society, and in his household society, in all the lanes, gathering all the society children like that. So Prabhupada carried that impression lifelong. And when he got the opportunity, Prabhupada introduced Rath Yatra in all the, so Prabhupada introduced Rath Yatra. And as you saw in the video as well, the Rath Yatra been taking place in San Francisco, the Rath Yatra been taking place in New York and London. And now practically Rath Yatra is there in every major city of the world, and Rath Yatra is very powerful. So you see, the point is, now we may say, it's so amazing that, okay, was it only 1970s and 1980s where Hare Krishna was starting? Actually, it's not the case. Even today, the Sankirtan is so powerful. Is so powerful. Even today, the Hare Krishna is so powerful. Actually, so that was the legacy which Srila Prabhupada started, or that was the way which Srila Prabhupada started. It is still going on today. Actually. So whenever it comes to positivity, whenever it comes to positivity, people look forward to Hare Krishna. The world governments are looking forward to Hare Krishna. That's how it is. Actually, that's how it is. It's a wave. Prabhupada created such a culture. Even today, Rath Yatra is such a powerful. So Prabhupada's faith was that yes, these festivals can attract the hearts of so many people, and they can become devotees. They can become devotees. So I remember, yeah, 2019 when I was in Melbourne. So I remember one of the days, I was as usual going to the University of Melbourne for to my lab, and that day actually, so University of Melbourne is in the heart of the city. So the main Melbourne's epicenter, pivot point, the happening spot is the CBC area. Is the CBC area actually, and one evening actually, I was still working actually because I generally used to work till late night, and yeah, and so I was still working in the lab, but then so the lab was so Melbourne University is very close to CBC. It's 10 minutes walk, you can say. It's as close as that. Say 2 to 3 tram stops. That's it. 10 minutes walk, 15 minutes. That's it. 15 minutes walk. That's it. So so there were terrorist attacks actually. There was a terrorist attack there, and 4 people were killed on the spot. Like that. Some of the terrorists were shot by the police and so on. Melbourne City. Melbourne City. So, so I remember after this, there was this whole wave of fear. There was this whole wave of fear which was there. Actually, the mood was so tense. Everybody was feeling so lowly, because the whole point is that if Melbourne's main pivot point, and it is CBC where there is parliament, the ministers' place, the industries, the ministers, the shopping complexes, the top university of Melbourne, everything is there at the CBC. And the terrorist attack happened at the CBD. It's like, it's like punching, on the face of a lion, under his chin. So it's like in the CBD area, the punch on the CBD area is like that actually. So everyone was very snarly. CBD is like that. And what is safe in Melbourne? Melbourne is a huge city, so many suburbs and so on. So that was the whole scene actually. And I remember actually, the devotees in the temple, Melbourne temple. So I would be staying in the Melbourne temple actually, ISKCON temple Melbourne, uh, when I was in Melbourne, and I would do up down to the university for research work. So in the temple, actually, devotees every week used to go to for kirtans, and they would go to and they would go for kirtans, and they would go to CBC, and this was their day. And actually, immediately they were also not knowing what had happened. So after this incident and all, obviously the traffic, everything was cleared off. The vehicle, the motion had started, the trams had started and all that. After the everything had got cleared up. A lot of police was all around and all that, and people were a bit shocked and all that. And the devotees were doing kirtans actually. And I remember the next day, all over the newspapers, actually it was there that actually amidst the newspaper headlines was what. Yeah, newspaper headlines was that amidst all that negativity and all that heart rending, like that, here were these Hare Krishnas, who came like angels actually, who and brought with them solace and positivity, that something solace and positivity which the whole Melbourne was needing. This was the headlines, this was the headlines. So this is where and this was the headlines actually. So actually the Krishna consciousness movement was like the Krishna consciousness movement, Western hollow culture, the culture based on sensuality. Krishna consciousness movement was like the like the medicine, like the refreshment, complete refreshment. So therefore the entire movement and the culture which Srila Prabhupada presented, startled everyone. It basically startled everyone. People were stunned, and people were stunned. People were stunned. That is the reason you can see that now you see, Prabhupada used to say that the germ of Krishna consciousness is latent in our own hearts. The germ of Krishna consciousness is not an artificial injection. It is there in our hearts. It only needs to be awakened actually. And therefore, whenever there is an awakening call for it, we can understand for ourselves. See, the Krishna consciousness taking over all over the world is a proof of the universality of the process of Krishna consciousness. That people who had no background knowledge also, when they got to hear the holy names, when they got that introduction to the chanting, to the kirtans, to the culture, to the acharya, to the message, to the mission, to the instructions, they took it up. They took it up. Just like a person sometimes, who has lost his memory, he regains his memory, he can understand everything. That is exactly what happens when we are hit by the holy name of the Lord, when we are hit by the holy devotees of the Lord. There is that awakening which takes place. There is that awakening which takes place. And that is why Krishna consciousness was hitting all over the world. You see, the mind, even in the communist regimes, as it was shown in the video. Now, communist people, they knew that, communist people, they knew that Krishna consciousness, the communist people, they knew that, that their government is dead against religion. But even they took to it. Because they knew that without it, life is hollow, life is meaningless, life is dark. So that is the point. Yeah. So Srila Prabhupada didn't just give philosophy, Srila Prabhupada gave the full presentation of the culture of Krishna consciousness. So the philosophy in action is called as culture, the culture of Krishna consciousness. Srila Prabhupada established farm communities in the United States and then all over, actually, up to the point of Australia. This farm community in Australia is still there as well. So Prabhupada established farm communities where devotees were growing their own food, they were having vegetation, they were offering to Krishna, agriculture, cow care, and it was self-sufficient farm community. By this, Srila Prabhupada is establishing the principles of simple living in life. Prabhupada established Gurukuls. That right from the beginning of their lives, children should be taught the right kind of sanskaras. So then their lives will become more and more sublime and divine. Prabhupada presented this culture actually, and this so this culture was so attractive and so powerful. This culture was so attractive and so powerful that just by seeing the lifestyle, uh, people were so much attracted to Krishna consciousness. So now the point is that the point is that Prabhupada would always say that philosophy and intellectual conviction is required for one to take to Krishna consciousness. But actually, the Vaishnava culture or the culture of the divine culture is required. The association and the culture is required to preserve our Krishna consciousness, to preserve, protect, and nourish. That's what culture can do. So that's what culture can do. So a spiritual culture can, in this way, enthuse or fuel our Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada was giving everything. Prabhupada was giving the awakening dosage. Prabhupada was showing the pathway back to Godhead. Prabhupada was giving the entire package in which one can preserve his Krishna consciousness. It's just like one gets salary and one gets scheme by which his salary can get preserved and it goes on increasing. Prabhupada was giving everything. Prabhupada was giving everything actually. Prabhupada made Gurukuls for small children actually to take the Krishna consciousness. Now, after having established 50 centers in the Western world, Prabhupada wanted to come back to focus on India. And Srila Prabhupada's desire was to make the world headquarters of ISKCON in Sridham, Mayapur. In Sridham, Mayapur, 7 hours from Kharagpur. Sridham, Mayapur, the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya. That was Srila Prabhupada's desire. When Srila Prabhupada came to India, so initially you can remember that the point is that Prabhupada, he wanted to make a center in Jhansi, and that's why he wanted to, make his headquarters. But Jhansi was snatched away from Srila Prabhupada because of political intervention. So you see what you see Prabhupada's answer in devotion and dedication. Prabhupada went to America. Prabhupada opened 50 centers, and now Prabhupada is coming back again. And Prabhupada brought Westerners back, to teach and to demonstrate to Indians that the Western world has taken to Krishna consciousness. So that is the point, that generally people have a tendency of aping or following the Western people. Prabhupada brought the Western people chanting Hare Krishna. So Krishna consciousness, in that way Prabhupada established so the first temple which Srila Prabhupada established in India was Calcutta, and the Calcutta ISKCON temple is still there. Prabhupada's room is still there, and the deities which Srila Prabhupada installed, Radha Govinda, their deities are still there. So the deities Srila Prabhupada installed are still there. And from Calcutta, Prabhupada was making the plan for preaching all around India. After that, Prabhupada took clients in Mayapur, Vrindavan, then in Bombay, and then in Hyderabad. Then in Bombay, and then in Hyderabad. When devotees came, Prabhupada did Pandal programs. Each day, these Pandal programs were visited by 30 to 50,000 people, actually. That happened in Bombay, that happened in Calcutta as well. That happened in Calcutta. I believe in Deshopriya Park, the program was conducted. So by the thousands, people were getting amazed by the movement, the Krishna consciousness movement. Now there are 108 temples in India itself. No, I mean, it's 820 temples, more than 108 are in India itself. Yeah. And yeah, obviously America has also more than 100 temples actually. Uh, Prabhupada established deity worship all over. So whichever principles in Shastras were helpful for the devotees, Prabhupada established that. So later, Srila Prabhupada had gone to Australia, and there were programs in Sydney, Melbourne. In Melbourne, Prabhupada established the deities and the temple in Melbourne. And Prabhupada had said there that the deities should be worshipped very nicely. Even today, the deities are worshipped very gorgeous. Uh, the Melbourne temple, Melbourne temple, Radha Krishna deity is worshipped very gorgeous, very elaborate worship actually. So Prabhupada went to. There is this classic. Prabhupada went to Australia. Prabhupada was installing the deities there. The devotees are very young, very young. Actually. So Prabhupada was doing the yajna, and and that yajna performance, devotees, because they were very young and they were not knowing much in Krishna consciousness, there were so many errors. Prabhupada asked them to bring fruits for the yajna. You need full fruits. So the devotees, I mean, when Prabhupada said fruits, actually, in the yajna, the fire, the yajna fire, around the yajna, you put fruits actually, and then you offer a homage, some fruits. Prabhupada asked some full fruits actually. But the devotees didn't understand. I mean, in their day-to-day experience, they don't have understanding of wholesome full fruits actually. They had experience of fruit salad. Devotees were fruit salad. Like the devotees were committing, hundreds of mistakes. And Prabhupada installed the deities. And then when Prabhupada was leaving the temple, for the next preaching venture, and Prabhupada was praying to the deities, and Srila Prabhupada was praying that that, oh Lord, I am entrusting these devotees to you. So these devotees are very young; they don't know how to do properly, how to do things properly. So please forgive them. Please take care of them. You please take care of them, oh Lord. I am entrusting all of them to you. So that was Srila Prabhupada. That was Srila Prabhupada. He was so encouraging for everyone. He had no, he used to he trusted in people. Prabhupada invested trust, faith in people actually, and uh, Prabhupada had full faith in that. Even if the devotees, they commit mistakes, because their heart is sincere and they're sincerely trying to serve Krishna, Krishna will shower His mercy on them, and that's exactly what happened actually. So that's exactly what happened actually. So this is Srila Prabhupada actually, and then as we said, that Srila Prabhupada established 108 temples uh, in his lifespan itself. Now, the A stands for. Uh, in this way, we see Prabhupada accomplishes an eternal place in the hearts of millions for generations to come. Prabhupada accomplishes an eternal place in the hearts of millions of people for generations to come. And generations to come. So you see, the success of a movement lies the success, the real success of a movement lies not just during the time when the Acharya is alive and the Acharya is spearheading it himself. The success of the movement also lies. I mean, that is one level of success. But the next level of success lies in the fact that the movement is a movement still going on and flourishing after the main Acharya has departed from the world. After the main Acharya has departed from the world. That is the point, actually. That is the point. So Prabhupada used to say that genuine practice of Krishna consciousness itself is very, very attractive. And therefore, Prabhupada founded this. The Prabhupada laid down 4 principles. And Prabhupada said, yes, you will get, Prabhupada used to say purity is the force. That your purity is your force to become a representative and instrument in the hand of the Lord. Purity, that sincere, serious practice of Krishna consciousness. The purity is the force. That is the first pillar on which the Prabhupada wanted to establish the movement. The second pillar on which the Prabhupada wanted to establish the movement was, Prabhupada said, books are the basis. Books are the basis. And Prabhupada said, everything should be based on books. That is why Prabhupada gave so much importance to book distribution. So, because it was not just distribution of a book, it was like giving sanjeevani to a dying person. Because in the material world, material consciousness is strangling the throat and the neck of everyone. And people are falling apart internally, externally, and so on. And Krishna consciousness comes as a sanjeevani to remove their intoxication and the poison, and therefore in liberating the person to a healthy life, beyond the modes of nature, beyond the pushings and pullings of the mind. So giving a book in the hands of a person means giving him sanjeevani, giving him a ticket, a license to get liberated, giving him a visa to go to the spiritual. That is the point. Prabhupada therefore emphasized on books. And Prabhupada would request devotees to read his books. Prabhupada would say that reading my books will keep you alive. So in this way, reading the Shastras, reading Srila Prabhupada's books, reading the Shastras in this way, Prabhupada's commentaries and explanations, is like food. It's like food, actually. And Prabhupada said actually that these, my books are law books, are like law books. Prabhupada wrote these books like that. Prabhupada took the essence of all the scriptures, the Upanishads, the Vedas, the Vedangas, the Samhitas, the Aranyakas, the Itihasas, the Puranas. Prabhupada took Prabhupada took the references from all of these scriptures, the commentaries of great acharyas, the previous acharyas, the acharyas of the 4 sampradayas, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Nimbarka Swami, Vishnu Swami, Nimbarkacharya. Prabhupada took took out the best, extracted the essence from all the commentaries of various acharyas, from all the various shastras, and presented it as purport in a very practical way in which the modern day people can relate with it. Modern day people can relate with it. That's why these books can be treated, the spiritual books can be treated as law books. Law books. And Srila Prabhupada said that I will eternally remain alive in my books. Prabhupada used to say, anybody who reads my books is my disciple. Yeah? Is my disciple. Yeah. So it's not that, at this point of time, we are deprived of Srila Prabhupada association. Srila Prabhupada association is there even today with us, in the form of his books, in the form of his instructions, in the form of his mission, which is not his alone mission, which is the mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It is the mission of the Supreme Personality of God himself to help the intoxicated living entities in the state of slumber, to awaken them to their reality of transcendental life, to the reality of transcendental life. That is the point. That is the point. That is the point, actually. And therefore, Prabhupada said, books is the basis. And Prabhupada said, the third principle Prabhupada said is utility is the principle. Everything should be utilized in the service of Krishna. No stagnation, no hoarding. Everything should be utilized in the service of Krishna. Utility is the principle. Whatever we get, we utilize it in the service of the Lord. Utility is the principle. And the fourth pillar on which Srila Prabhupada established the movement, uh, Prabhupada said, preaching is the essence. Preaching is the essence. So the heart of the Supreme Lord is to reclaim the fallen conditioned souls who are running on demoniac trajectories and pathways. I mean, demoniac trajectories which are actually leading to hellish planets or hellish way of life, and therefore acute suffering. So Prabhupada explains the Shastras are echoing this aspect that if one wants to please the Lord, then one can assist in the desire of the Lord. The Lord's heart is there to reclaim that these fallen conditioned souls can get awakened to their spiritual reality so that they can become happy and they can stop suffering and suffocating in the material life. And Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that one who becomes an instrument in the hands of the Lord to preach the glories of the Lord, such a devotee is very, very dear to the Lord. Such a devotee is very, very dear to the Lord. Therefore, Prabhupada said, preaching is the essence, is the shortcut, but highly adventurous and highly sublime way of pleasing the Supreme Lord. Not just Supreme Lord, all the acharyas. Pleasing the Supreme Lord and pleasing all the acharyas. So we see that, because of the principles Srila Prabhupada gave and the system which Srila Prabhupada established, Srila Prabhupada did not leave the movement in the hands of just one successor. Prabhupada made a team. Prabhupada said it is going to be a teamwork. Because at any given point of time, one person may go up and down. One day he may be a little down. Some anarthas have overpowered him for the time being. He is a little bit pressurized. But if there is so one person is down, then if he's the top man, then who's going to help him out? So Prabhupada made a movement. Prabhupada made a group. In the form of governing body committee, Prabhupada made a group action, wherein there are many devotees. So there are many sincere devotees. At any given point of time, few may be down, but few may be up. By their enthusiasm of those who are up, everyone is uplifted. At any given point of time, somebody or the other will be up. So that means at all given points of time, everyone is uplifted, even though they have the mental turmoil. That is the point. In this way, everyone is uplifted, actually. So therefore, Srila Prabhupada said that he is making a home where the whole world can come and stay, and that is exactly what Krishna consciousness is all about. That is exactly what Krishna consciousness is all about. So therefore, the movement is not only carrying on, but the movement is spreading like fire all over the world. Right? So Krishna consciousness is a universal need, and everyone needs, and it was Srila Prabhupada who stands out as the foundation and the role model. By whose example and life and dedication, we can get so many insights about what exactly spiritual life is, and what should be the goal of our life. What kind of targets should we take in our life, how to make our life meaningful and sublime. And that is all because of the struggles, the desire of spiritual path to secure an eternal place in the hearts of millions of devotees. Millions. So I believe we'll stop here. Uh, so there is much more to the life of Srila Prabhupada. Actually, the lives of these great acharyas, are so enlivening. They can make, or they can, they can help us understand some of the deepest and most complicated injunctions of the scriptures very easily, because these are living encyclopedias and living examples of dedication and surrender and sharanagati. So therefore, actually, meditating on the lives of the acharyas is very healthy. It's like food and nourishment for a devotee. Yeah, for a devotee, like food, nourishment for a devotee. So we'll stop here. We'll meet again next week. Hare Krishna. I thank you all for your patient audience. And so you can meditate, visualize Prabhupada's struggles and Prabhupada's qualities, actually. And we can understand that, yes, how much struggles have gone by to actually get, we are just, to actually give us support and systems by which we could practice and elevate our lives, the quality of our life. Hare Krishna.